Welcome, everyone, to You Learn, You Turn, another episode of our podcast that's aimed to help people struggling with mental health issues. And today I have two very, very special guests, Amanda Kasmira Cryer. Her name is Kasmira, and then Tara Trantham, who actually is a return guest. We've had her once before. We also have her on our platform sharing her story there. So Tara, if you would just introduce yourself and give us a little brief synopsis of your background and what brings you to a podcast like this today.
Sure. Thank you, Elizabeth. I'm happy to be back again. I was a corporate attorney for over 23 years, working at the highest Fortune 500 public companies and things, and through an assortment of things that occurred, but primarily just not facing and fear of the stigma that I was suffering a mental health condition with PTSD and some depression, anxiety. I ended up attempting suicide, and so I'm an attempted suicide survivor. And I began to just write really on LinkedIn, just almost cathartically sharing my story. And then that turned into a book. And then I'm just out here trying to help others and share my story, in any way that I can. And then I met Amanda. And so that's kind of how we are all, or because where we all are here together.
Good afternoon, Kasmira. We're so glad you're here. Many of you might have seen her if you're on LinkedIn or any social media. Her posts are amazing. I'm just so excited to hear her story. And I really, can I read a little bit of your bio? Just a snippet.
Sure.
So she is an award-winning filmmaker. She's featured in LA Weekly, Yahoo Finance, Women in Business, Forbes Inc. magazine, and the Voyage magazine group. She's a conscious activist for mental health, people experiencing homelessness, poverty, ecocentrism, prison reform, SA and IPV, and unifying media. She is really a trailblazer in the social media realm in that she is all about raising. Actually, Kasmira, I'm going to get you to explain what you do and how wonderful and life-changing it is for some people.
Thank you. And it's so funny, Tara, because it's okay. You call me Amanda, so don't worry. I mean, that's how we know each other as sisters like that.
I know, but I love Kasmira. I think it's such a beautiful name, and I would prefer to call you that. So we'll get it.
I'm surprised I didn't say my sister.
Thank you,
Elizabeth. Anyway, all right.
Yeah, I know. Usually Tara and I are just like sister. I don't even think I say her name anymore that much, but I will. My journey's been interesting for sure. For the last 15 years, I've been working with several mentors. One of my very close mentors, she was a director of capacity and leadership development at the United Nations, and she worked with the UN for about 25 years. And during her tenure there, she took on about 100 people worldwide to directly mentor. And I'm one of those 100 people, very fortunate and obviously extremely honored and grateful that she has that kind of faith and belief in me. And we met back in 2008 in New York, and I quickly learned what it was that I stood for in the world and really why I was so bothered by what I was seeing. And having been working in media now for more than 2 decades as a filmmaker and working in media in some capacity for more than 2 decades, I noticed that there was so much division and polarization happening in media. And because of the media's responsibility of putting out authentic messaging to us, I saw that a lot of the messaging that was being created was being designed purposefully to cause conflict. And I, as being a media professional, I could see that because I was working behind the scenes as a producer, as a director. I was also working in front of the camera at times as well, but I could see what was being done. And I could see what was happening with families and friends and colleagues. And I didn't like it. It really, really bothered me. And so because of that, that sort of I gained this real burning desire inside. I mean, I'm talking like burning desire that gets me out of bed every day to want to unite humanity and create a world where everybody can live in harmony together. And that is not something that is generally what the news is for. The
Not
news,
at all.
no. And so the news is designed, unfortunately, there are shareholders that are looking at the bottom line. So whatever's going to catch someone's attention is what's being spoken about in the news. And that's not usually stories of a unified humanity. It's usually looking at this person did this person did that. It's things that will draw us in mentally, psychologically, and emotionally, and have us get triggered so that we click on it. It's clickbait. And then we go and we read all about it, and we get even more triggered. And so as a result of all of this in media and in social media, which I've been working in that space now for so long, I noticed the mental health implications it started to have on not just me, but everybody I knew, everybody, colleagues, my family, my friends, everyone. And I watched over the years, especially when the pandemic hit, this is when it really came to the forefront. Everybody started turning on each other. And so it became everything was us versus them. It didn't matter if it was man versus woman, gay versus straight, religious versus non-religious, Republican versus Democrat, vaccinated versus unvaccinated. It was all about us versus them. And so I'm not saying like everybody has a valid opinion, but the problem with our opinions is that we don't listen to other people who have different opinions than we do. And so unless we listen, and Tara knows this as well as I do, unless we come out of our own silos and our own echo chambers, we are never going to change anything. And our mental health will continue to struggle. And we're going to continue seeing suicides all over the world with people our age and people who are much younger than us, because they're getting all of this information that is all us versus them, demonization of one group, heroic actions of another group. And so it's very frightening for me as someone who is older looking at, I have a brother who's 21. This is a great example. Thank God he's in a relationship with a girl right now. He's been with her for 3 years. They have a beautiful relationship, but like it's for someone who's very young like that, he's never really going to know what he's being told, what he's reading. If that's the truth, because truth is very subjective. I mean, of course there are universal truths, but truths are also very subjective to whatever lens in which we see the world through. And that comes from our personal experiences, are the way we've been brought up, our education, the areas of the world we grew up in, our belief systems, what our parents instilled in us. And so all of this, us versus them, and everything that's going on is a direct contribution to how we feel about ourselves, our self-worth, our identity, our value in the world. And that is my belief, is that all of that I just mentioned is what has contributed primarily to people's health decline in mental health stability. It has
I agree. I mean, you hit so many things that are just hot button topics in our little family in our house. I have a 25, a 22, and a 15-year-old. The 25-year-old I don't worry about so much because she's starting to discern what is real and what is not. But the images and the media, the stuff that my 15-year-old is taking in, it's so violent, and it is so, I mean, thank God he has friends of all different ethnicities, but you would think they're supposed to hate each other. He's supposed to hate this guy because he has multiple gods, and he's supposed to hate, and he sees through it. But my gosh, I don't know. You're exactly right. So what led you, I know in your bio, you said that there was a point where you realized that we're literally being poisoned. What was it that tilted you to go into this business and try to really change from inside out?
It's when I saw people that had been friends for decades start turning on each other. And I have shivers talking about it, because when I saw that happening, the only thing I knew what to do in that moment was, the first thing I did was break down and cry. Because that's just, Tara knows this about me very well. When I see that kind of thing occurring, it's something that it breaks my heart into tiny, tiny little pieces. That's the first response I have. And that is, one of my mentors, what she first told me when she got to know me was she said that one of those, if you can call it a gift, yeah, I think it's a gift that the three of us probably share. It's a gift that I resonate very, very deeply with the human condition. There's a sense when I see that people are being hurt and I see that people are not understanding each other. I have this feeling like I'm pulled towards wanting to co-create a conversation where people can listen to each other and work it out. And so maybe that comes from the fact that I come from a warring family. I mean, my family in Ireland were half Catholic and half Protestant and blowing each other up for years over religion. And
Yeah.
I myself believe in a higher power. I do. But the thing is that there's no way I'm going to go out there and kill someone because they don't have the same religion I do. Nor am I going to not like them, accept them because they believe in a different God than I do. So maybe this is something that came to me at a young age, hearing stories from my grandfather. He shared with me what went on in Ireland, and maybe that's where it started from. I'm not really sure, but over time, throughout my life, when I saw all of this happening with people turning on each other, and then especially when the pandemic hit, that's when I just thought something has to be done. This cannot go on. I mean, people were messaging me on my YouTube channel saying that because of the isolation, whatever was happening, and not that we didn't have to isolate, we did. So this is not like, oh, don't isolate, or yes, you, or no, don't isolate, don't wear a mask, it became all this political agenda going on, which was like, if you don't do this, you're bad, or if you do this, you're good, and all of that was creating so much of a mental health issue for so many younger people. And I was telling Tara earlier today, that was something I personally experienced on my YouTube channel, because I was having people reach out to me telling me I've been suicidal during this pandemic, during this lockdown. I don't know what to do. I can't handle the isolation. For me personally, I've been dealing with an illness for several years, so I'm used to being isolated. So for me, it wasn't a big deal in that respect. But what was a big deal was seeing all these young people that were messaging saying, I can't deal with it. I don't know what to do. What do I do? And the thing is, I'm not a professional in that area. I didn't exactly know what kind of advice to give. All I knew was to be someone that could listen. And so I created Zoom calls for people all over the world that we could get together and just talk.
Wow.
That's it, just to share. And so
that's all some people need.
Yeah. That's all I knew what to do. I didn't know what else to do.
Do you still have your YouTube channel?
Just to be able yeah, it's still up. Yeah. And that's actually interesting because that's something that Tara, can I share, Tara?
Of course. Yeah.
Thank you.
Please.
So I started the YouTube channel because I became unemployed during the pandemic. I'm a filmmaker and we couldn't make movies anymore. That was it. It was closed, shut down. And as a result of becoming unemployed and then just seeing all of this going on in the media, I myself became extremely depressed and full of anxiety. And I was like, what can be done here to ease my own stress, but also to perhaps help others? So someone suggested something to me, a friend of mine, which I thought was completely absurd when he suggested it. I thought, this is crazy. Like, I love you, but this is not going to work. So he suggested that I just start watching movies and get in front of the camera and record myself. And I said, why would anybody want to watch a middle-aged woman watching a movie? I said, that's that's ridiculous. Like, for me, I felt like that was an absurd idea. And he was a very big connoisseur of what they call movie reactors and reviewers. And I knew nothing about that industry at all. So I said to him, it doesn't make sense to me. And he said, listen, he said, Amanda, I've known you for more than a decade. He said, every time we go to a movie, you are so emotional and you are so animated with your reactions. Like, I will yell at the screen because when I'm being affected by something, I'm probably the worst person to watch a movie with because I have so much commentary going on while I'm watching the film. So I wouldn't recommend watching a movie with me. But the thing is, that's what he said to me. He said, because you're so like that, I honestly think people are going to want to watch that. And so I thought, oh, okay, let's just try it. So we tried it and people did. People wanted to see it. And that's when I received all these messages about, watching you get attached to these characters and going through the emotions with them really helped me. It helped to validate my feelings about this story and about these characters. And so there was some kind of validation going on with when I was upset for something that was going on in these movies, other people felt validated that they were upset as well. And there was like a connection that was made there, a human connection between people I don't know that didn't know me. And it just turned into this thing that that I didn't know it was going to turn into. And so the reason why I say all that is because Tara and I are specifically going to use the YouTube channel now to start a podcast on mental health and to invite people like you, Elizabeth, to come on, like other people to come on and share their stories and to have your story. Because Elizabeth, you're a host, but we also want you to share your story too.
Well, it's quite an interesting story. So yeah, I would love to, and I'm so excited. We need more females telling their stories, but we need more platforms where literally people just go there to get hope and see a little bit of themselves in the story being told and can walk away and say, you know what, today I don't feel like killing myself. I mean, if you guys can provide that little nuggets for people, I think that's going to be incredible. Are y'all going to be in studio, or are you going to be just on a YouTube, like recording like this? Or do you know?
We're a work in progress. I will. Amanda has the expertise on that, but if I could just share for a moment, Amanda and I, these things happen for us, right? So I'm really glad. I'm grateful that it happened today before we came on. Grateful, and the person's okay. So during this week, Elizabeth, just this last week, I had 3 children that are teenagers that are, that I know that were struggling with suicidal tendencies. They felt comfortable to come to me. I think maybe it's the book. Maybe it's I'm just completely authentic and say the things. And, I got them in the right place, got them some counseling. And then I learned just last night that a young girl had really been trying to ask for help, saying these things. And she got a gun and held it to some of her friends, not anyone local. So, I no name, anything like that, but, she's getting help right now and she's grateful. She feels relieved. Her mom's with her, and that is the most powerful thing. If there's anything else that I do in my life, that would be the most powerful thing, right? If I just change one life or save one life. And I feel like that so I called Amanda and I was like, okay, look, we got to do something. I don't know what we're going to do, but we got to do something because the stigma is so hard on people. I mean, it was so hard on me as an adult, they fired me. They arrested me and took me to jail when I tried to commit myself. Like, think of a young child, whose brain is not even fully formed. And so then Amanda goes, well, I got this. So that's where we are. But I think that's how it happens, right? And it's amazing.
Listen, you see a need and you filled it, and fantastic. I am so excited for you guys. And I think, the fact that you talk about everything you've been through, Tara, these kids knew that not only were you a safe place, but they didn't feel weird or that there's something wrong with them. You said, look, this is life. Life is not easy. These are the things I've gone through. This is the help I've gotten. I'm a suicide survivor, suicide attempt survivor. I think it's just beautiful. I'm so lucky I get to meet people like y'all every day and just trying to better the world. Kasmira, back to, I'm so excited for y'all. Back to the, how do you see your influence on social media? Because the only social media I'm allowed to be on for my brain is LinkedIn, which is not even really social media. It's more of a work platform, but the reason I can't be on Instagram and stuff is because I fry my brain by continuing to do the dopamine hit. And then I get off and I just feel so gross and I don't really know why, but it's a comparison thing that I don't even know is happening in my body. Wow, look at them. Wow, look at her. Wow, and so I just don't do it. But I want you to do it and get out there because your messages on LinkedIn are just so beautiful, encouraging. And the first time I ever saw you was when Tara, she connected me with your profile. I can't remember how, but I started following you and I saw that you were a member of, or maybe you started Big Changemakers. What is Big Changemakers?
Big Changemakers was an organization where we consulted with and worked with individuals, investors, and social impact entrepreneurs to create lasting positive results in an area of impact that they wanted to impact in the world. So it could have been in the area of environment, sex trafficking, mental health, education, justice reform, homelessness and poverty, sexual assaults, intimate partner violence, anything like that. So we were something that this is an area that I've been trained in, is that we work with people that want to really create a real difference, but work with them to empower them to understand how to see systems and not just these symptoms, because that's all we see on the media. Is we only look at we're only seeing the symptoms. We see a woman or a man who has been, beaten or hurt by their partner in intimate partner violence, but we don't see the underlying system that perpetuates why these things are still going on. And so that's actually an area that Tara in particular is working in, and she's been having some real results in this system, which is so important because it's when you only address symptoms of a problem, which is what most of us see, because we're not trained to see symptoms. We're not. They're relatively hidden from our view. And I mean, you could argue that that's purposefully done, or you could say that it's just not. We just don't recognize these things because we're not trained in that area. But when we only address the symptoms of a problem, we're putting band-aids on it, and the band-aid never addresses the infection of the wound. And so,
Right.
in order to address something in order to actually change something and have it be a sustainable, lasting change, you have to address the system while also looking at the symptoms. Otherwise, the change that you create is going to be fleeting. It will change,
Right.
but it probably won't
If I could,
last.
I just during that work, and Amanda's doing different things now. As you know, she had a little bit of an illness, so had to take some time off. So she's going to start something different, but with some of the same ideas. But what I learned from Amanda just in this process, and just knowing, I'm sorry, Kasmira. I know that's her name. I'm sorry. Yeah, so we're so close, but is that when I was trying to make an impact, and Amanda, she began following me, and she and I began talking, is that her idea of uniting and unity of people, you really can't make change if you're coming from a place of us versus them. And that was, I have to admit, that was very difficult for me. One, I'm a lawyer, so I want to argue my side, and I can do it well.
Yeah.
And two, I was angry. I'm still angry. I'm still angry that I got arrested but I've had to step back. And this is what literally, Kasmira, changed my life. And I mean that seriously. And in my outlook on life, that, the police that were coming here were working inside a system, and a system that's broken. And they weren't trained to understand that my husband was having substance abuse. He's not evil. He's not a villain. He has a substance abuse issue, and they weren't trained in that. They weren't trained in mental health issues, and so no one really got the help that our entire family deserved. But that was no shame. I believe that shame and guilt does not heal, right? And so what I've discussed, previously, is that they were doing their best in the confines of what they knew, and and what they understood. So we have to look at everyone as humans in unity. How do we work together? There's symptoms that come from our systems that none of us want to happen. But how do we work together to fix those things together, collaboratively, talking to one another? So I changed, and then I'll turn it over to you. I changed that. Okay, actually, in these discussions I have, I want to talk to the police. I want to talk to the sheriff. I want to bring in an abuser that stopped abusing. I want to understand what helped you to change, and where did this abuse come from? And it comes from pain. It comes from trauma. It comes from sadness. So that was a huge eye-opening moment for me. And the ability to actually make impact rather than get into what we have all over the world, like Amanda was speaking at the beginning of this, is just them, us, them, whatever it is. And they're right, we're wrong, and that has been a powerful difference.
Well, you're exactly right. And that change will not come with us yelling at each other. And it sounds like what Kasmira preaches and teaches and walks every day is empathy. Stand in their shoes for just a minute, because everyone is fighting something. Everyone's coming from their own traumas, their own, and getting angry is justified in the moment, probably because you've been through so much. And I was a victim, but it's not going to change anything if we both just stay angry. So I think, Kasmira, you're doing, it's like Gandhi, it's like Wayne Dyer, it's like all of the people that I look up to that really brought people together. They never took a side. You would never know if they were Republican or Democrat. Like, they just wanted everyone to come together. And that's a beautiful thing. So I'm glad about your new venture. And does it have a name, you guys? What you're going to be doing on your channel?
The podcast?
We have to discuss.
This was really literally, and I was like, oh, we have to talk about this with Elizabeth, because it's it's really came to us that there's a need that needs to be filled, and if
and I'll link your any social or anything that you have. I'll link all of that so people can follow along on your journey. And when you do have it ready and up, people will be able to find you easily. I guess I just, if you have any defining things about the podcast, I would love to advertise it here so people can follow you guys. We have a lot of women listeners, a lot. So I think it's important that our voices are heard. And I just feel like I don't hear enough women talking about their substance use disorder. I hear a lot of men, but maybe I'm just not listening to the right podcast. So Kasmira, is there anything else you want to share? Just keep talking. I just love to hear you talk. You have a lot of good stuff to say.
She does.
That's so kind of you. Thank you. But I was gonna say, I've noticed that too. I actually haven't heard a lot of I haven't heard a lot of recovering female addicts, and I would like to definitely hear more about that. I was going to say I think this is important for me to say, and whether it's important for anyone else, I don't know. But I am extremely far from perfect. So even though I walk my talk and I am committed to love and unity for all of humanity and creating an egocentric world, I also feel things very deeply, and I have been hurt in my life, and I know I've hurt others. And so it's not a perfect thing. Like, even standing in those values, even though those are the values that I stand in 1000%, I can have days where I spend my whole day in bed crying. And
sure,
I don't want to mislead people into thinking that, because I'm able to distinguish these conversations and be able to transform these conversations, which yes, I can do. That's what I've been trained to do. And it comes as second nature to me. I'm also still human. I get angry, I get upset, I get depressed. I struggle with that. I struggle with anxiety. And so these are things that I've been dealing with pretty much my entire life as a result of the traumatic experiences I've been through. So it's not, I just want to remind people that I think that there's a bit of a narrative out there that, we sometimes get invited on a podcast and we get invited to share our stories once we've come through the other side and everything's hunky-dory and everything's great and, you survived and all this kind of stuff. And I think that's fine. That's great, because those are inspirational stories, and we need to hear people that go through adversities, the adversities that Tara's been through, myself, yourself, Elizabeth. However, sometimes I think it's really important too, and I know I've said this before, is to include stories of people who are still actually going through it and who haven't come to the other side yet. Because it's not, I think sometimes it might even be more important, because we've almost created a culture that is like, okay, you're going through a rough time, you're going to get through it, you're going to be great, and everything's going to be okay. And we know that. And so we set up our support systems to support us, to help us get through it, so we don't take our own lives. However, in that process of getting to that place, getting to the other side, there's a lot of stuff that I think that that we could, if we could create safe spaces for people to share what they're currently dealing with, and not have other people look at that and be like, oh, you're being so negative, and oh, don't talk about those things, and this kind of like this almost toxic positivity. And I know, and I
move on. If I hear move on, you've already done that. You've already had that resentment. Move on. I just want to punch somebody. Like, this is where I am today. I totally agree with you. It's the authenticity of our journeys that we need to share, not just because I know, Tara, I mean, everything's not hunky-dory for you every day.
No.
And it certainly isn't for me. I mean, I think until we lay down and take our last breath, it's a journey of mishaps, ups, downs. I'm trying to teach my girls that one of them struggles really bad with anxiety and depression. And I say, go for the wins that day. But if you're not feeling great, it's okay too. It's okay to not be okay.
And I think, sharing that it's a journey of healing, and being, and that's a lifelong journey. It's a lifelong journey, and you have the days, where, I tried to make, when I wrote that, I really just started writing things on LinkedIn. I didn't really even think about writing a book, but it was so important to me that I was honest and authentic. Like, I went to therapy 3 times a day, and that was great. And then yesterday, I went to therapy, but today I'm laying in bed, like Amanda said, because, I'm laying in bed and I can't, I literally feel like I can't function, and I don't know when I'm going to get out of this bed. Right. But then I did, and kind of the theme. And so I feel like that. And my dear sister here is so powerful and so kind and so loving and unites people. And, if you can get back into, like what she said, kind of where we stand, and there's days where you're not, right? There's days where I'm like, this is so unfair, and I am so angry, and that's okay. I've got to let it out. I can call her, be like, I'm mad, but then to get back and know that that's not going to help me or anyone else is what has been so powerful. But if we can just find a space, and, again, we're this happened, but I believe it happened for a reason today, right before today. I believe that. But if we can find a space where, I don't know, we just share, and, people like Amanda, one thing I think that when you did your YouTube before, everyone felt so isolated that there had no human contact at all. So even it was almost as if they were watching the movie with you, right? They were with you in your living room watching.
Exactly.
It was powerful.
You said.
Yeah. So we're excited, but we don't have all the answers.
Well, I'm gonna I will, anytime you post or anytime you and also thank you so much for introducing me to Andrew Douglas. He is so wonderful. We think he's great, and he's doing a lot of good for first responders. So anyone else that y'all want to introduce me to that's on the journey with you guys. And Kasmira, what do you think I know that you're mostly we've talked about adults, but what do you think the biggest harm happening to our teens and young adults right now with media, social and just news? And what, as a society, can we do to, besides raise people like you up to help change the narrative, but what can I do maybe as a parent or as someone who, because social media is not going anywhere. It's not. And the phones aren't going anywhere. They're not. And so I've tried to fight it. Do you have any advice for me and for the rest of us?
That's a big, huge question. And I by the way, I feel exactly what you feel. And it's part of the reason why I actually don't like social media. I'm not a person who likes it, because when I scroll through, I find that what's out there often has us feeling can have us feeling worse about ourselves. And, they've done so many studies already that there was an internal Facebook study done. And I think I shared this with Tara, that was some crazy number, like 36% of teenage girls who felt bad about themselves when they went on, who felt bad about their bodies when they went on Instagram, it made them feel worse. And
Yeah.
so as a parent for you, I mean, the only thing that I know that we can do is to start a movement of creating new narratives. And I don't mean the movement of narratives that everything is perfect and fine. I mean a narrative of authentic people like Tara sharing her story, and everybody doing that and not being afraid of being punished or being fired because of that. And currently that is actually still going on. It's not, that is going to take something from us. And also too, I would recommend that any young person, and I've told my brother this many times, I always say to him, whatever you believe in, don't always believe what you think, because what you're listening to and what you're reading all the time, there's always different sides. And so it's not, it's a balancing act. It's like, and I know that term is being thrown around so loosely, but the thing is, it's like, it really is like being responsible and accountable for the information that we take in, knowing that what we're getting is designed to have us go back for that same information over and over and over again. So we're never getting an objective look at how we are forming our own opinions. And so
that's good. I wish I could remember exactly how you phrased it. Don't always believe what you think.
Yeah, so it's a very famous quote, and it says, and I forget who said it, I'm sorry for forgetting, I should be able to remember the person who wrote that, but the quote is, don't always believe everything you think.
I love that.
Yeah.
Thank God, because I would be in real trouble because my mind is just,
well, you make up we all make up stories about ourselves and about each other.
Yeah.
The other day, I think I was talking to somebody, and I was like, look, you're making up a story about me. That's not the truth. You may think what's going on, but that's not what's going on here. And so we have to like really look at like how our brains are functioning in those situations, and that's all due to what we've been through in our life.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. It's all tainted through our own lens and of trauma and experiences. So, wow. Well, this has been a real big information. I don't want to say dump because that sounds derogatory, but information download for good. In fact, I can't wait to just show snippets of this, little bite-sized nuggets everywhere. And I'm just so grateful for you ladies being out in the world and sharing your story and trying to unify and not divide this country and this world. I wish we had more of you. We could clone both of you and send you out as soldiers, but unfortunately we can't. But thankfully, for social media, we can get your word out. And because of this podcast, I will link anything that you guys have coming up for your new venture. And just storytelling, like real authentic storytelling about people's journeys in the middle and at the end or in the beginning of their journey is going to be so helpful to society. So thank you, ladies, for your time and for everything you do. Is there anything else you guys want to say to our audience before we hang up?
I say thank you for having us again. It was so great to be with all, with the three of us together. And I just want to make one last comment about, the social media and how people feel and other things, is that, if you can just always remain grounded in that there's someone that might look different or smaller, thinner, fatter, prettier, whatever, but there's only one you, and you are perfectly made. Exactly. And I just say that to Christian every single day. And if we can try to do that, and if we can go out there and say, hey, the people who, my beautiful friend here, right, that everyone thinks everything's fine. It's not fine. We're not fine, and we're okay to say that. And we're going to, and I think that's really powerful. So
thank you, Tara. Kasmira, do you want to end with anything?
Thank you so much for having us. And Elizabeth, anything that I can do to, elevate what you're doing in this podcast. I mean, this is really, really important what you're doing here. And
Oh, thank you so much. I really hope that, we did give some people hope today. That's really my mission, every time. And I know we did. And I know we gave people a lot to think about too. I can't wait to go back and listen because you were just spilling off some really good stuff. And I'm glad it's recorded. I'm glad it's recorded for a podcast so everybody can listen and enjoy. So with that, I will have you guys back, I know, another time, and hopefully we'll see you out in the podcasting world. But Tara, Kasmira, thank you so much for joining You Learn, You Turn. And with that, we will say goodbye.